we need to talk about these two new retro handhelds. I'm talking about the Anbernic RG28XX and the Miyoo A30. Am I the only one who's really disappointed in them? Like, Jesus Christ. Not to play Nostradamus here, but a few videos earlier I talked about planned obsolescence in this retro handheld market that we all love to live in. And both of these devices, for different reasons, fall right into the idea of planned obsolescence. And I'm just gonna continue and preface that I am gonna review both of them once I get my hands on them. But Vlad Nerd is such a small channel, nobody sends me poop. This guy never received review devices, so once I manage to get them on order, I'll drop a review. But I don't need to have them in my hand to point out the obvious, glaring shortcomings that they have. Let's start with the RG28XX. Look, I'm gonna be fair here. This handheld has a lot of things going for it. It's small, people love small things. The screen is rotated, which means that it has no bottom bezel, unlike the RG35XXH, and I personally love this, because it gives a more symmetrical feel to the display. What happens here is that every display has a set of connectors. That's why old phones had that huge chin at the bottom, because that's where the connectors were. This is what we see on the Anbernic RG35XX. But what they did here, in my opinion, some people might not like this, but they flipped the display so the connectors are on either the left or the right, and this means that that chin can be cleverly hidden. I love this, and I also love the battery life. If you ask me, having a battery life of 6 to 8 hours on a handheld like this is nothing short of ridiculous. It's immensely good. In fact, I think it's the same battery that my trusty old RG35XXH has. And it has the same exact CPU as the RG35XXH, which means custom firmware will arrive for it pretty soon. That's awesome, right? Right? Not really, because you know what else the freaking H has that the RG28XX doesn't have? Freaking thumbsticks. And no, these are definitely not a gimmick. On a handheld that is able to play Nintendo 64, part of the PSP catalog, these are essential to have. Hell, even PS1 is better with analog sticks, and don't even get me started on Dreamcast. The Anbernic RG28XX can play any of these things because it shares the same CPU as the RG35XXH. But you don't have a thumbstick, meaning that you will always run a risk that a game might require more inputs, more buttons than you actually have on the damn thing. And this plays into planned obsolescence, because it really doesn't matter if they give us the processing power if they don't give us the buttons that we need to take advantage. Buttons should be the biggest priority. Thumbsticks should be the biggest freaking priority. They had room to put it. Look at the Miyoo A30. It has a thumbstick. I would argue that shoving a retro handheld with as many input modes as possible, with as many buttons, is the single most important point for retro handhelds. Because otherwise we might as well just play on our phones and get used to touch inputs. But we don't want to do that, and I agree that we shouldn't do that. That's why we're buying dedicated handhelds, for the buttons. And I truly think that this is intentional. I kept waving the RG35XXH for a reason in this video, because this is considered a step above from the RG28XX. In fact, the first number in how Anbernic names their product lines defines the generation of the handheld and how modern it is. So they very well intended for the Anbernic RG28XX to be an inferior product to the Anbernic 35XX-H. And while it's more portable than this one, I would argue that the RG35XX-H is also very portable, and we're reaching past the point where this doesn't matter anymore, because if you have enough space for a 2.8-inch handheld, then you have enough space for a 3.5-inch handheld. These are not behemoths to carry. But on the other side of the ring we have the Miyoo A30, which is totally different in its shortcomings than the RG28XX, and personally I am immensely bothered by this, because you'll see later that if we would take both of these handhelds and merge them together, we would have had the perfect micro handheld. But planned obsolescence is one heck of a female dog in this industry. So let's break it down. The Miyoo A30 has that thumbstick that I kept parroting about for the first part of the video. It also has symmetrical up and down bezels. It has bigger buttons than the Anbernic RG28XX. At first impression, you would not be wrong to assume that it's a more refined product than the former. But you see, my dear nerds, the Anbernic RG28XX has an all-winner H700 as a CPU, which just so happens to be the same CPU inside the 35XX and inside the 35XX non-H, the 2024 version, but also inside the Anbernic RG35XX Plus. Yes, I know, I did 3 takes with these names. They are annoying as all heck, but I'm slowly getting used to them. I'm not so bothered that they share the same CPU. In fact, the CPU is pretty good for retro handhelds. They will still be slower than basically any phone that you probably have at the moment. The Miyoo A30, on the other hand, has an all-winner A33 as a CPU, and this is downright tragic. I love Miyoo, I hate criticizing them, but that CPU, the all-winner A33, was released 10 years ago, in 2014. It's built on 40 nanometers. 40 nanometers is insane, which, to simplify for those who might not be as technical, basically means that it's weak and it gets hot very quickly. And it's not power efficient, it eats through the battery like mother flipper, and we can see this. In fact, the battery of the Miyoo A30 can be between 2 hours and 4 hours of gameplay. Granted, there's an asterisk here, this might change with future software updates, with Onion OS, if it ever comes to this, compared to the Anbernic RG28XX, which goes between 6 and 8 hours. This is a joke. And it pains me to say this because I've always been on Team Miyoo. I loved Miyoo's previous products, and I really hope this product gets more refined with future iterations. But both of these handhelds are the definition of product obsolescence. One has a better CPU but doesn't have thumbsticks, so you can't really play anything outside of 2D games, and the other one has thumbsticks but has a potato as a CPU. And this is me ignoring the size of the screen. I would very much want to be able to play PSP on a 2.8-inch screen without my eyes hating me after that. And don't even get me started on build quality. Russ from Retro Game Corps, awesome guy by the way, we love him, managed to get his hands on both of them. Look at these rattly buttons on the Anbernic. They sound like a freaking rattlesnake. We would be like freaking cartoons walking on the street, and with each step you would hear those freaking shoulder buttons. Way more so than the Anbernic RG35XX. So yeah, to wrap this up, I might change my opinion on these two handhelds the moment I get them in my hands. But currently I think it's quite funny that if we were to combine them, we would have had the perfect product, because both of them have shortcomings in different directions, and both of them have strengths over the other. The Anbernic has a better D-pad, the Miyoo has a thumbstick. The Anbernic has better performance, the Miyoo has a thumbstick. My kingdom for a thumbstick, I guess I'm team thumbstick. I know some people do not prefer thumbsticks, but it really helps you out. I would never play Mario Kart on the Nintendo 64 without a freaking thumbstick. And Nintendo, just so you know, I own the game, so don't even try me. I really hope these devices get better. I'm perfectly aware that I'll come off as a bit of a hater in this video, but since we don't live in a perfect land where we can combine two handhelds together to make a perfect one, I started thinking, and I realized that we kinda have a handheld that beats both of these out of the water. If you're okay with the 3.5-inch screen, the Anbernic RG35XX actually has all the benefits of both handhelds. Is it a little bigger? Yes, but come on, let's be serious, this is not a big device. This slides in your pocket just as easily as all the others. It's not a behemoth, it's not a tablet. We need to stop biting the bullet that things need to be ultra pocketable. Ultra pocketable is subjective. I would argue this is ultra pocketable. Does it fit in a pocket like all the others? Yeah? Then it's pocketable. We shouldn't go lower than a 3.5-inch screen like this one. We should try to incentivize companies to build better products. For example, I would love a new variation of this handheld without this bottom chin. Flip the screen if you need to, I don't care. I would love for this bottom chin not to exist. I would be the happiest person on the planet. But no, we get half-measure handhelds where they always have to have something missing. And I don't like this. I don't want to burn bridges with any company. I love both Anbernic and Miyoo. Guys, don't be mad at me for saying this. Send me review devices in the future, I would love that. But currently all of this needed to be said. So I hope I didn't burn too many bridges today, but just in case I did, make sure to help me maintain this channel by becoming either a channel member or a Patreon, and by doing so you end up on my wall of fame right here, which will be featured in each and every clip. You can do this for as little as $2.99 per month, and I would be immensely thankful for it. Also, don't forget to subscribe. This channel is so freaking small and every subscription helps. And don't forget, my dear nerd, that I love you very much. That's why I'm here, burning possible personal benefit just to give the truth to you fine people. Because fun fact, the most successful YouTubers are the ones that do not criticize the products that are being sent to them. And the ones that criticize do not get any of these benefits. But that's all from me for this video, my dear nerds. See you in the next one. I love you very much.